128 points. That is how far Kimi Antonelli finished behind his own teammate last season. Not behind the champion, behind the other car in his own garage. Hold that number, because 11 months later, the man who runs that team has just said something about him that he has never said about any young driver in his career. And it came out of a practice session where nothing happened. Here is the moment, exactly as Wolff described it to Racing News 365 at the Hungarian Grand Prix. Antonelli could not put a lap together on the soft tire. That is all. A driver in practice, unable to string one together on the quickest compound available. And what he said on the radio in Wolff's account was not what a young driver says. He did not ask for another set. He said he was pitting and that they should move on to the long runs. He had the feedback. He was losing 1/10.5 in turn 4 because he was lifting. And he said, that is fine, tomorrow it will come. That is the entire event. A teenager choosing to stop chasing a lap time, nobody would remember. Tell me your country in the comments, because that list has gone in directions I genuinely did not expect and I read all of it. Subscribe while you're down there because this gets its next test in Italy in front of his own crowd. Now, why the man saying it matters more than the thing being said. Toto Wolff has run Mercedes since 2013. He signed Lewis Hamilton's contracts through the most successful run any driver has had in the modern era. He brought George Russell through and Valtteri Bottas before him. He has watched more young drivers arrive with enormous reputations than almost anybody currently working in this sport, and he has watched most of them not become what the reputation promised. So when he was asked which part of Antonelli's growth surprised him most, the answer carries weight precisely because of how many comparisons sit behind it. He said the whole thing is a surprise, that someone can grow so much over a few months, that Antonelli's capability of taking information in, processing it, and executing it is outstanding. And then the line, it is the best he has seen from any young driver in terms of the growing process going so quickly. The best he has seen, not the fastest, the best at growing. Let me put that under the light, question by question. Question 1, is this a man promoting his own asset? Possibly, except he opened the same answer by admitting he does not understand it. Why that is, he said, I have no idea. That is not a sales pitch. Sales pitches come with explanations. Question 2, is he talking about speed? No, and this is the part that gets lost. Every specific thing he praised is about information. Taking it in, processing it, executing it. Nothing in that description is about a driver being quick. Question 3, why would that be the thing that impresses him? Because raw pace is the one thing everybody arriving in Formula 1 already has. It is the entry requirement, not the differentiator. Question 4, has Wolff always talked about him this way? He has not, and this is where it becomes a story. Now hold that thought, because there is a version of this conversation from 11 months ago, and it is the same man about the same driver in public. Go back to the Italian Grand Prix in September of 2025. Antonelli's rookie season, his home race. He went off in second practice and lost most of the session. He qualified 6th. In the race, he picked up a black and white flag for persistent track limits offenses, then a 5-second penalty and a license point for running Alex Albon off the track. He finished 9th, and Wolff publicly for the first time criticized him. He called the weekend underwhelming. He said it twice in the same breath. You cannot put the car in the gravel bed and expect to be there. All of the race, he said, was underwhelming. At that point, Antonelli was 8th in the Drivers' Championship, 4 points behind Albon, and 128 adrift of Russell. Set that beside where he is now. Antonelli leads the Drivers' Championship. Hamilton is 50 points behind him in second. Russell, the teammate who was 128 points ahead of him last season, is now 59 points behind him. Same driver, same team principle. 128 points in one direction, then a championship lead in the other in 11 months. And here is what makes the comparison worth anything at all. Antonelli's response to the criticism, at the time, told you more than the criticism did. He said he would take it as fuel. He said he and Toto had always been open with each other. He said he agreed with the comment that qualifying had been decent but the race was not good enough, and that he had made a mistake at the start. A 19-year-old, publicly criticized by his employer at his home race, agreeing with the assessment in detail. If you were Wolff last September, you had 2 options, and both carried risk. Criticize him in public, at his home Grand Prix, and you either harden a teenager or you break his confidence in front of an entire country. Or protect him, say nothing, and let a driver who has been handed the most coveted seat in the sport learn that results are optional. Which one do you take? Like this video if you criticize him publicly, comment if you protect him, and I will read the split next time. Subscribe while you're there. Then the timeline moves further back, and this is the detail that closes it. Antonelli's very first appearance in a Formula 1 session was at Monza in 2024 in first practice. He went to the top of the timing screens on his first timed lap. 10 minutes later, he crashed into the barriers at Parabolica with a force Wolff put at 45G, and the session was red flagged. Wolff's response then was to say the crash had zero effect on the driver decision, that you hire on ability, and that a bad first practice session is not the reason you choose for or against anybody. And then he said something that reads very strangely now. He said Mercedes would rather have the problem of slowing him down than the problem of making him faster. That was the diagnosis. Too much pace, not enough conditioning of it. Read that against Hungary, a driver who does not chase the lap, who takes the feedback about lifting in turn 4, and who says tomorrow it will come. That is the exact problem Wolff described in 2024 solved, which is why the compliment is not really about talent. It is Wolff watching his own diagnosis get closed out. Now the number that makes all of this worth your attention. Antonelli is 19. If he wins this championship, he becomes the youngest world champion in the history of Formula 1, and he beats Sebastian Vettel's record by 3 years. 3 years in a sport where records of that kind usually fall by months. And there is a structural reason this is harder than it looks, which is worth understanding before anybody crowns anybody. Nobody in that garage has done this before, with a driver this young. Mercedes have managed championship campaigns for experienced champions. They have never managed one for a teenager in his second season, and the second half of a title fight is a different job from the first. The pressure compounds, the cost of every mistake grows, and the person absorbing it has no previous season to compare it against. That is not skepticism about the driver. It is the actual open question, and Wolff's praise is aimed exactly at it. He is not saying Antonelli is fast. He is saying Antonelli processes and adapts faster than anyone he has seen, which is the only quality that matters when a season starts to squeeze. Now, the strongest case against everything I have just said. He has had the best car. Mercedes-powered cars had won every race and taken every pole through the first part of this season. Put any competent driver in that machine and they lead a championship. And Antonelli's teammate is not being outclassed by a wide margin so much as beaten by a car that suits one driver better than the other. Wolff, meanwhile, is a shareholder in the team, and a 19-year-old Italian championship leader is worth a great deal to Mercedes commercially. Praise from him is not disinterested, and the growth being described is not measurable by anybody outside that garage. We have his word for what was said on the radio, in a practice session, and nothing else. That argument is fair, and it cannot be settled until the car stops being the best one. So here is where I land. I do not know whether Kimi Antonelli wins this championship, and neither does anybody else with a season and a half of evidence to go on. What I can put in front of you is a sequence with dates attached. In August 2024, this driver crashed 10 minutes into his first Formula 1 session, and his team principal said the problem would be slowing him down. In September 2025, that team principal called his weekend underwhelming in public at his home race, with the driver 128 points behind his own teammate. In July 2026, the same man said he is the best he has ever seen at growing, and admitted he cannot explain why. That is not proof of greatness. 2 seasons is nothing, and this sport is full of drivers who look like this at 19. But when a team principal with that many comparisons behind him reaches for the word best, having previously reached for the word underwhelming about the same person, the question of what actually changed inside that driver is a legitimate one. And the man closest to it says he does not know. And 128 is what carries all of it. 128 points behind his teammate last season. 59 points ahead of him now. Nothing about the car explains a swing that size inside one garage, because both drivers have the same car. Whatever moved, moved in the driver. Wolff watched it happen from 10 feet away and still cannot tell you what it was. Zandvoort is next, then Monza on the 4th to the 6th of September, the circuit where he crashed on his debut, in front of the crowd that will decide what he means to them. And Mercedes may take a grid penalty with him there, at his own home race, in the middle of a championship fight. So predict it now. Was he always this good? Or did the car finally catch up to him? Like for one, comment for the other. Subscribe so you are here when Monza answers it, and hit like if you want that breakdown the day the penalty is confirmed. Until the next one.